So Trump is scared. Trump is scared that the whole world will decouple from America's petrodollars. The only way America can control the whole world economy is to keep the whole world pegged to American greenbacks with petrodollars. Because America wants to control the fossil fuel of the whole world transportation industry depending on gasoline and diesel. So America wants to keep all the oils and the commodities productions that come out of petrol, televisions, anything that need plastic and even the tars of the streets, everything comes from oil, paints, chemicals, everything. And America wants to keep that monopoly on the world stage by controlling the whole world consumption of oil with American greenbacks. That's how America props up its military and its economic hegemony over the world. It's by controlling the monopoly of oil throughout the world. So under the Trump administration, he's desperate that the world is decoupling from the world reserve currency, that the world is beginning to decouple. So he's waged global tariff wars on all nations on earth because they want to keep America wants to keep the whole world as and every nation in it as economical colonies under the greenback, controlling the world economic order. It's the biggest enslavement underneath a pyramid Ponzi scheme. And that's how America props up the New York Stock Exchange. And even Trump is like Rockefeller's father, a snake oil remedist, a venomous snake oil remedist, terrifying the whole world with his venom of greed, never-ending greed. Trying to take the whole world and rape the whole world for the love of this monopoly of the petrodollars. The biggest pyramid scheme imposed on the world. With the all-seeing eye, you could say, of his NFT cryptos, because they launder the oil, fossil fuels, and every other oil oligarch and business oligarch. Trump gets rich off of them. But let's go back to the oil monopoly. He wants to tariff every nation on earth 100%. That means starvation. He wants to starve the world into submission to keep this monopoly on the world stage. And now Chevron was located in California. Now all the big three are headquartered in Texas while they try to gerrymander the midterms. So Trump is uniting the big three under one state, the Lone Star. Like he's bringing Rockefeller monopoly back. You know, they broke up Rockefeller as a monopolist country, as a monopolist business. They broke it up into Chevron, Texaco, and Exxon. But Trump is bringing them back into one state of Texas. And the reason America hits Iran, hit Libya, Syria, and now wants to hit Venezuela is because America wants to keep OPEC beckoning to the whims of American hegemony over the world. That's why they got the Emirate nations in their pockets. And the American dream of the petrodollar. That's why Trump has all his name plastered throughout the Emirates when it comes to real estate. And they roll out the red carpet for him. But the other OPEC members that don't want to be enslaved by the American dollar, the other OPEC members, they get subverted with the American military. So there's a preference there. The Emirate nations, they get spoiled by America if they only follow America's foreign affairs to keep the whole world enslaved to the American greenback. So America wants OPEC to be under its yoke of totalitarian. So as long as the Emirates are willing to do what America wants it to do, they'll be on America's good side. Now the other nation OPEC members that don't see it America's way, they get bombarded and toppled, like Libya, Syria, Iraq. Now they want to do Venezuela. They got some OPEC members in Africa they want to topple, beyond Libya that are part of OPEC, just to keep the whole world beckoning to the petrodollar of America's stock exchange, to keep the whole world pegged to our currency. America wants every nation to only consume energy with our currency. They don't want to go green energy because it would defeat the purpose. So they rather destroy the planet with pollution, carbon emissions, because of the greed for the greenback. And the New York Stock Exchange ringing their bells every fucking morning they open up their stock markets. Greed. Greed. Nothing more, nothing less. For the love of money like the OJs, this nation would do the weirdest things. But that's why they want to keep the whole world enslaved, to be dependent on one nation's currency controlling the purse strings of the world, controlling the world commerce through our currency, because they want every nation to be enslaved, to be dependent on fossil fuels, but only with our currency. Nothing else, nothing less. Now, if every nation tries to defy America's hegemony over the world economic systems, if y'all dare to unenslave yourselves, America will target y'all with 100% tariffs, meaning 100% starvation. This is genocide, economical genocide. For America to say we will inflict 100% tariff on any nation that decouples from the greenback. In other words, we're threatening to starve every nation on earth 100% if you dare question our currency. That's how tyrannical America has gotten under the Republican Party. That's how tyrannical. Trump wants to take Canada and Greenland just to run these big three oil companies, Chevron, Texaco, Exxon, as a monopoly, because Trump is bringing back Rockefeller. Because that's his only remedies, snake oil remedies. So he wants to conquer Canada and Greenland and make it part of the United States, only to run gas and oil pipelines into the Arctic to flood Western Europe with American oil and gas, because it's too slow to take liquid gas to Europe on ships, on container ships. Liquid gas is too slow. America wants pipelines. So Trump wants to rather take and annex Canada and Greenland territory just for this oil monopoly to run gas and oil pipelines into Western Europe. Trump wants to get Exxon in the Russian Arctic to flood Western Europe by Exxon profiteering off the Russian Arctic. America wants to be able to control the energy pipelines of the Russian Arctic, flood India with pipelines controlled by the petrodollar. America wants China, Arctic energies from Russia, to flood into China with Exxon controlling the pipelines. So America wants to keep a monopoly on the whole world for the love of oil, because it's floating our greenbacks, giving us the monopoly on the world stage. Not to mention, America doesn't want to let no nation of the Assembly of the United Nations, meaning every nation wants to make up the world-based rules, but America takes its totalitarian veto power as the world's sole superpower to subvert the United Nations Assembly. And the United Nations Assembly is every nation on earth. But America wants to keep the monopoly on the Security Council to make up the world-based rules as a sole superpower. America wants to make the whole world beckon to Washington's hegemonic power. So every nation on earth in the Assembly of the United Nations, America has a totalitarian unanimous power to veto the whole world-based rules. Because America has a monopoly within the United Nations ever since the end of World War II. And America doesn't want to give it up. Meaning America doesn't want to let every nation sit at the tables equally. to vote equally. Because if the assembly votes, America vetoes. If the assembly votes, America vetoes. And the only thing that gets done and passed into accord is whatever this sole superpower desires. So America is dictatorial, suppressing the whole world. And it doesn't want to let go of its monopoly or its hegemonic power. America doesn't want to let every nation on earth sit equally at the table of the Security Council to make the world-based rules unanimously, by all nations voting equally with their equal sovereign votes unanimously as permanent members of the Security Council, to pass the world-based rules as every nation has the right to vote equally. America doesn't want to give that right to the assembly. To the assembly, you're all peasant third world nations. You're not Europeans. The ones that are controlling that monopoly is America, Britain, and France as permanent members of the Security Council. While the whole world is peasants. They look down on the whole world. They look down on South America. They look down on Africa. They look down on the Middle East. They look down on Asia. And they look down on Eastern Europe. So the whole world is under the yoke of America. The monopoly of America. The hegemonic overruler of the world with impunity is America. And every nation is subverted under the whims of this one nation that we call the United States of America. One nation on earth with impunity ruling every other nation like proxies, like peasant lands. The Assembly of the United Nations yearns to be equal, but America doesn't want to let it be equal. All the nations on earth yearns for equal liberty and equal representation as the League of Nations, as the law of the open seas, as the United Nations of the planet. But America doesn't want to give up its hegemonic superpower position, its global sole superpower position, but wants to keep the whole world enslaved 100% for the whims of their currency greed. And it's not fair when every nation in the assembly wants to sit equally and make the world-based rules all unanimously equally, but America keeps the assembly like peasants, like serfdoms, like regions of filth. The third world, the global south, Eastern Europe. We're filth. We're dirt underneath these imperialist Washingtonian powers of pagans, of one nation's constitution, reigning like a dictatorial rule over the rest of the world. With the delusions of the politicians in Washington, under the capital love, the greed of all money is the root of sin. For one nation to enslave the whole world to the whims of their greed, under this greenback. Absolute global power for one nation is absolute corruption. To think that you can enslave the whole world and every nation in the world to the whims of one nation's impunity. That is not a just society of nations. That is not a just system for humanity on this planet. Now, if America doesn't know how to be democratic, then it must fall from power. If America doesn't let every nation be equally sovereign and equally represented in the United Nations, then America must fall from power. I am calling for all nations to be set equally, with equal sovereign votes, as permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. I am calling to decouple all nations on earth from the greenback. You have to look at my economical theories on this channel to understand my philosophies on economics. But I'm calling for the evolution democratically of the United Nations. Because one nation can't oppress the rest of the nations on earth with a dictatorial rule. That is unjust for all nations on earth to be under the yoke of corrupt politicians in Washington. So what's going on now with the Venezuela, this all got to do with oil to prop up the greenback. It happened to Iraq, it happened to Libya, it happened to Syria. They use the excuse to overthrow governments just to keep the monopoly going. These are nothing but scams to float the petrodollar. You don't got to look so far to understand that they will tariff the world 100% into starvation. Every nation in the world, America is willing to starve the whole world out. 100% tariffs. If y'all dare question the greenback. That is a fascist enslavement of the whole world under the Trump party. It's tyrannical. It is madness to think that you can enslave the whole world to one man's greed and get away with it. To enslave every man on earth, every children, every woman, every human being on the planet to one nation's greed of one man's order to deal. As long as his vanity of NFTs look providence, they can crypto it out through the Treasury Department as Trump launders his order deals into quid pro quos and props up his real estate. Now they're using the excuse of Doge, saving the economic budgets, saving. But in reality, they use the excuse of Doge to vet out non-Trump supporters from the FBI, from the CIA, for Homeland Security, from the Pentagon. It's their excuse to vet out the government of non-Trump supporters. And they hide behind Doge. They use an excuse, a pretext, to suit their interests in politics, the fascism of Trump. They're using the excuse of Doge to fire the masses of agencies and their staffers that are not Trump yes men, in order to deploy the military and to subvert the republic for the midterms, for the swing states, because Trump is too scared to face justice. But this is crazy for one nation to think that you can starve the whole world 100% for the art of the deals, for one nation's greed, never-ending greed. At that, never-ending greed. And to deny all nations on earth equal rights and equal opportunity, equal sovereign civil rights, to be set equally at the table of nations, as all nations should be set as permanent members of the Security Council. Because one nation wants to keep the monopoly on the world stage, so they want to subvert every nation on earth without having the right to control the world-based rules. America wants to have the veto power to say how the world should turn and how it should turn based on Washington's desires. One nation trying to run the world with impunity, to subjugate every other nation on earth for one nation's monopoly. Ask yourself one question as nations and humanity on this planet. Why does America doesn't want every nation to sit as permanent members of the Security Council? Why? Because it's nothing but enslavement. That's why. Why America doesn't want to let every nation to be equal at the table? Because it's a Security Council that vetoes the assembly like if the assembly were peasant third worlds. And who controls the Security Council? Is America? And America flunkies Britain and France from underneath its Capitol Hill, Mount in Washington. Because even Britain and France, America flunkies around. So if America says to Britain and France, jump, Britain and France have to say, how high? If America says to Britain and France, jump through loops, Britain and France have to say how many loops we have to jump through. And so these three permanent members is America calling the shots on the Security Council. While they subjugate the assembly and every nation on earth like peasant regions of the planet. Ask yourself why America doesn't want to unenslave every nation on earth. Because it's too lucrative for America to let go of those purse strings 100%. It's too lucrative. So if anything, I'm a freedom fighter. I'm fighting on behalf of all nations to be considered equal, to be considered sovereign, to be considered human beings on planet Earth. For all nations to be sat equally at the table. And so where every base rules are afforded and accorded, every nation has to vote unanimously their conscience. And no one nation can veto the whole world. That's the difference. That's democracy. That's liberation. That's all equal opportunity for all nations to be sat equally at the table. So when the world-based rules are accorded, every nation has their equal votes. And for any nation, for any world order to pass into law, it has to be a unanimous vote of all nations on earth. See, that's the difference. That's what you call democracy. That's what you call true democracy. But America doesn't want to let go of this hegemonic world soul superpower. America wants to flunky every nation underneath it. And that's dictatorial rule. That's imperial fascism rule on the whole world and every nation in it. America has lost its way because of capitalism. America has lost its way because of the love of the money, under the abomination of greed, which is trumpery.